Can people speak in tongues today? As we noticed on the first episode of this lesson, yes, people can speak in tongues. I'm speaking in a tongue right now. But the question is concerning the way the Bible teaches speaking in tongues. Can people do that today? We saw last time from Acts 2 that speaking in another tongue was the result of the Holy Spirit empowering these people, giving them utterance to speak another tongue. And there were people there listening who were from other parts of the world, and they could hear what was being said in their own language by these Galileans who did not have the knowledge of that language. So the Holy Spirit empowered them to preach the gospel in a language that these people from other nations could understand. That was speaking in tongues in the New Testament. The first time there's speaking in tongues recorded in the New Testament, Acts chapter 2. Please notice it was a language. It wasn't the random weaving together of syllables. It makes an interesting and unique sound, but it doesn't mean anything. There's no one on the face of the earth can understand what's not commonly known as tongue speaking today. It has no meaning to it. What was being said to these people from various parts of the world in their own language was basically the gospel of Christ. We find over in Acts chapter 10, Peter had preached the gospel to some people, and the same thing happened. Acts 10:44 says, while Peter was still speaking these words, the Holy Spirit fell upon all those who heard the word. The people were amazed because then, verse 46 says, they heard them speak with tongues and magnify God. What had happened? Peter had preached. The Holy Spirit fell upon these people, and they began to speak in other tongues. Is that happening today? I knew of a man who declared that he could speak in tongues, and I heard him do so on an occasion in the assembly of his church. And then the preacher of that church stood up and began to interpret that tongue. And we'll talk about interpreting tongues in another episode. But this man spoke in tongues, and the preacher declared himself to be interpreting the tongue. I studied the Bible with this man for a long time about this very topic. And finally he said, I may not know from which spirit I am speaking. Well, that was as good as an admission that he wasn't really speaking in tongues. And we must ask the question then, if he wasn't really speaking in tongues, what was his preacher doing who claimed to be interpreting that tongue?
Jesus is the only head at Lake Drive Church of Christ.